geologists and all earth sciences academics have a false premise at the base of their thinking and of all their research and of all their writing. And that false premise is that we are the first advanced race in the universe. Really? That's a bold assumption to base everything you do on. So whether you're a geologist looking at the material on a riverbank, or you're a zoologist watching a zebra on the Serengeti through binoculars, or you're a laboratory assistant looking at life forms through a microscope, or you're an astronomer looking at various stellar objects or planetary objects, everything, the assumption goes, must have come into existence through natural forces, because we're the first advanced race in the universe. We didn't build any of that stuff. It must be natural. So the question is never asked, because of this false premise that we're the first advanced race in the universe. The question is never asked by earth sciences, space sciences, biological sciences people, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? So that's the problem. It's the premise that we're the first advanced race in the universe, which is farcical on the face of it. The first advanced race? Please. We are on our way to becoming advanced. We are not that advanced compared to the races that already exist and have been here for millions, billions, and maybe trillions of years.
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie. We are back at it again for another episode of Living Life Consciously. We have a very special guest lined up for you today, and I am stoked to get started. So without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Hey there, Cosmic Thrill Seekers. It's Justin here. Welcome to Living Life Consciously with Hello Allie, the place where we explore the extraordinary, ride the waves of inspiration, and embark on an adventure of limitless curiosity together. Leslie?
I'm your co-host. Hi, I'm your co-host, Leslie, also known as Light, Being, Love, an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. And we're very happy to have Jock Doubleday here. Jock, would you like to say hi?
Hello to all of you out there on the internet.
All right, awesome. So for our audience, have you ever wondered if the Earth herself might be an ancient artifact? On this episode of Living Life Consciously, we're diving into a theory so extraordinary it can literally change how you see the world around you. Meet Jock Doubleday, a playwright, archaeologist, and field researcher who believes our planet was built, yes, built, by advanced civilizations in the distant past. During his 23 months at the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, Jock uncovered incredible evidence that ties these ancient structures to a much larger global terraforming project he calls Artifact Terra. Jock shares fascinating discoveries from his fieldwork, including the hidden engineering of riverbed and hills, advanced building techniques, and signs of asymmetrical designs that traditional geology has just straight up missed. His research connects dots from Bosnia to South Africa to the US, revealing stunning picture of ancient planetary construction. There we go.
Wow, that's the best bio I've ever heard. That's fantastic.
I love when people say that. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So welcome.
I should make clear that I'm not an archaeologist. I'm an amateur archaeologist, I guess you'd say.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. No worries. No worries. All right, Jock. So the term true ancients is intriguing. Who do you refer to when you say the true ancient, and what do we know about their purpose and history on this planet?
Good question.
Well, I use the term true ancients only to distinguish them from the ancients whom we normally think of as the pyramid builders or the megalithic construction races, whoever they were. We still don't really know who built the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau or the other larger structures on the Giza Plateau, or even who built the Giza Plateau itself, because I think that's also constructed, because there's signs of construction. If you go into the Osiris shaft, you can see vertical lines that are indications of perhaps the plateau itself having been constructed in sections. So the true ancients that I believe built the continents from below the ground up, in other words, they didn't just sculpt features that were already there, and they didn't just build from the ground up, but they built from below the ground up so that everything we see is built. The creek beds, the riverbeds are built from below the ground up, and they themselves are the foundations for hills, and some of those hills are foundations for mountains. So it's all knitted together. These races, because I think it's more than one race probably, the true ancients at least built the continents, the continental features we see, hills, valleys, mountains, riverbeds, creek beds, and I have the evidence for that in my channel, in the artificial riverbeds playlist on Jock Doubleday YouTube channel. It's there, so anyone can see it in real time with me as we go on the adventures out there on the terrain.
Awesome.
And they possibly have built the planet itself, and that's what my book Artifact Terra talks about. Is trying to, I have one chapter on the continental features having been built, and that's a solid chapter full of evidence. But then to try to get evidence that the planet itself was built, that's a tougher proposition. So that's going to take the rest of the book.
Okay, wow.
Wow.
Do you have an estimated release date for this book, or it's still too much in the works to say that?
Yeah, October 2026, and I only put that deadline out there to make me go faster.
That's smart. That's smart.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
can't help but think of, and I don't even know if this is something that you've looked into or researched yourself, but of the moon. And there's some people who think the moon wasn't always there, and that it might have been placed there.
Leslie, you literally read my mind.
Did I?
You did. I was thinking that before, because I always think about that story about how somebody said that something struck the moon and then it rang like a bell and resonated in space for like 2 hours, and so they think that there's like a hollowness to it, and that there's like maybe even like a base or like somebody hanging out in there, or like an alien office. I don't fucking know.
And then
about that.
I guess it's connected to the water. Like part of, I guess, the reason would be to affect the waters on the Earth, But I mean, maybe the Earth was covered fully with water at one point. The moon was placed there. I'm over here like going into theory. I have nothing to back this up. This is just how my brain works. But anyway, yeah. And then the ancient. What'd you call them, Jock?
The true ancients?
Or should we say the extraterrestrials or alien interdimensionals? Or what would be if they were the ones in the Earth? Is that Agartha?
Oh,
I'm jumping all over the place.
You are.
The inner Earth races, you might say, yes.
Is that the same as Agatha or Agartha? I could be totally messing that up.
Well, there's the Agartha civilization that's inside the Earth, according to different cultures' stories, legends.
Okay.
Then we have different testimonials from people who have been inside the planet, and Corey Good talks about having met the Anshar, which are the humans from the future who came back to our timeline, but came back long before our modern times. I think he said 17 million years before today, and they've been inside the Earth watching humanity progress, and they're guarding the optimal timeline so that they themselves don't disappear from the timeline is probably one of the objectives, but they're guarding the optimal timeline from their technological chairs, and they're sitting in these chairs, and they can telepathically connect with certain families, and certain people are sort of responsible for the actions of certain families on the planet and things like that. So that's the Anshar. And Corey said he met them, and he asked them how they have the lighting down there. And they said, well, we create light from sound. So that's pretty cool. And then Tesla also says that
Tesla.
We love Tesla
light,
around here.
so Nikola Tesla literally said, quote, a light wave can be nothing else than sound in the ether. So light can be nothing else than sound. And the ether, by the way, has been discarded by academia because they don't want us to know that we have a medium for light, that we have a quarry for all matter. Because I think that the ether is where we get the material to build a planet if we become a planet building race. And that's what Nikola Tesla told us we would do. In his article in July 1930, he said, in Man's Greatest Achievement, the article, he said, our greatest achievement will be one day to create worlds. And he said we would do this by learning how to whirl the ether. So by putting the ether in motion, that very action of the whirling action is the matter. So matter is ether in motion. And we would learn how to do this, and presumably for each different type of matter, it'll be a different way of whirling it, maybe.
Okay.
And then when we learn to do that, we'll catch up with the other planet building races that presumably have been here for millions of years.
Wow, that's such an interesting theory.
I have so many thoughts going through my
Yeah.
head.
I have a lot of thoughts.
So
too.
many. I'm like
One thought is that, like, from my understanding, like, this is going like way into more of the spiritual, I guess, realm or metaphysical, or you know, I don't want to chuck too many names in there, but definitely in those two fields. But that our thoughts are actually creating worlds. I mean, like, we're just creating, like, even our thoughts are creating, but like not even in this world, like in many dimensions, possibly. I don't know. Okay, sorry. I shouldn't even.
No.
So
No,
you mustn't
like,
apologize. You should always never apologize for giving us your thoughts, because you're a creator and you deserve our respect for whatever comes out.
Oh, that's true.
that was really sweet.
I am.
Thank you. Yeah. I was thinking of like the twirling dervish and how they use spinning to like get into like a meditative kind of state, and that's how they connect. I was thinking of Chris Lato and how he was talking about spinning there for a moment, and I was thinking about Corey Good, because you mentioned him, and he was very, very prevalent in the early stages of my spiritual awakening. And then I know that you also did a lot of work with Journey to Truth with Tyler and Aaron, and they were also in that same like kind of time frame with me with the Corey Good stuff. So that's very relevant. And by the way, super jelly. I love me some Tony Rodriguez, and I know you spoke to him. So, whoa, I cannot, like, every time I talk to somebody about Tony and like the secret space program, when people don't know about the secret space program, I'm like, what? You don't know about the secret space program?
Right.
What? I even have one of his books right here. Let's see if I can get it. Yep, Project Star Maker. Here we go.
Yeah, I got those two. If I can find them.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the disclosure stuff, which I mean, today is apparently the day where a lot of stuff is going to come out, but it's all connected to the secret space program stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's what's coming out.
Oh. Cheers. Cheers. Very cool.
Yeah, you're right, Leslie. The secret space program is key. And I interviewed Tony, and he interviewed me about my theory too, because he's interested in it. And that's on his Patreon channel. It's not really public, but anyway, Tony is amazing. He's been interviewing Dan Winter, who is that, Dan Winter, right? He's the fractal university guy who talks about everything imploding to the Planck unit, which is the smallest possible measurement.
That we know of.
It's pretty amazing. So yeah, go check out Dan Winter and Tony trying to keep up with Dan Winter is really interesting, and watching Tony learn in real time. I can't keep up with Dan Winter at all. He's way beyond me, and I'm just like, Tony's smart as hell. I mean, he's keeping up with this insanely jargonized. It's jargon to us, but it's like real terms that mean real things to Dan Winter, because he's smart. He's a real smart scientist. So Dan Winter's amazing. There's so much going on. You guys have been talking about plasma with Chris Lato in your recent interview with him, and that's super important. I think that's because if plasma is 99.99 whatever percent of the universe, then why does academia discard plasma?
Right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that was one thing that you were discussing. I don't know if it's before we started recording or not, but that basically the assumption that we were the first, I don't know how you would phrase it, Jock, but the first, I guess, intellectual or first species to be in the universe, that's just the assumed thing, and that we're going by that. And you can probably say that better than how I just expressed that. But the same thing is with consciousness, and physics. That's the whole argument right now. So it seems like science is just wrong in so many ways, on so many levels. Like, in all the fields, and like things are really changing right now, like really quickly. And so it's really neat to talk to you right now about, your theories on what you were
Well, it's
saying.
interesting that you guys talk about consciousness and intention, and because I've been having readings with this lady called Vanessa Lyle, and she's a medium, and she has a guide named Raina from what we call the Pleiades.
Oh, Vanessa Crystal
we interviewed
Consciousness.
her.
That's how we
Oh, you know her.
got. That's how
Yes,
she's
yes.
the reason why we're talking to you right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so shout out Vanessa.
Yeah, shout out Vanessa Crystal Consciousness.
Yeah, everybody check out that video.
Sorry, go
I've
ahead.
had like 15 readings with her over the last 3 years, and I asked her questions about galactic history. And she says that her guide, Raina, tells her that when I ask the question, how was Terra built, or how do they build planets? The answer is that they use intention. So the advanced races, meaning not necessarily races that have bodies like we do, but races that can exist, let's say energetically, somehow, they gather, and they through intention create thought forms, and then presumably from the ether the matter is coalesced. So that's basically what her guide Raina is saying, is that the matter is brought from the ether to coagulate around or coalesce around the thought forms that are created through intention. So it's just like they're not out there with wheelbarrows and scaffolding and shovels.
Yeah.
Right.
Just going. They're so advanced that they're so bad. You can imagine how old these civilizations are, and that's why I call them the true ancients, to distinguish them from the pyramid builders. Although then again, you go, well, maybe some of the true ancients came and helped build pyramids too. Like I think the Blue Avians are probably some of the true ancients, and then I think they're associated with pyramid building. So it's hard to know,
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think they had like ancient, like super advanced technology, kind of like the Ancient Alien show and their theories? Are you kind of in line with that? Or do you think that it was like another species with off-world, like, I don't know.
You mean for the pyramids like at Egypt, you mean?
Yeah, like how did they terraform the earth? You know what I mean?
Oh, well, because I think it was two. So I think it was 3 separate projects. So the true ancients, in my theory, they created the ball from the ether through intention, and then they came back later, or some period of time. There was a second stage where they created the continental features, and that creating continental features, hills, mountains, riverbeds, creek beds, valleys. That went on through time. So it wasn't just, let's do this all in a week or a day or 1,000 years.
And maybe they went ahead and brought the moon in during that time.
Well, and then I think there's I've heard 3 or 4 different tales about the origin of the moon, about where it came from. Alex Collier has his own view, and different people who I trust, they all have a different view of who it came from. But then and then we have the archaeological evidence that it was brought between 11,500 and 13,000 years ago. When we look at the Calendar Gate in Bolivia, because that broken gate, that's got the crack in it, and they set it back up, and it's got the information on it in pictographs that show that we used to have a smaller moon that had a faster revolution, and then 11,500 years ago to 13,000 years ago, a larger moon was brought in and the smaller moon was replaced. So we have that on that gate telling us that story. But then I have another person who I trust who says it was brought 18,000 years ago by a person named Marduk.
Okay.
So I trust all these people, but they all have different stories. And I don't know.
I'm going to have to look up that gate thing because I don't think I know.
Well,
about
the
that.
date range, 11,500 to 13,000 years ago, that aligns with the Younger Dryas event, supposedly, that had happened around that time. And
right, you're talking about the end of the Ice Age, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, then you go, I wonder, because you were talking about the moon creating some kind of flooding or whatever, right? And I think that maybe what happened is the moon being brought into orbit, it did cause a lot of chaos, but maybe it ended the Ice Age, which was actually good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I actually just like heard something, I can't even remember what I was listening to just now, but it just came out. But anyway, that, something about the moon, and this is probably why it was fresh in my brain, but that prior to the moon's like arrival, I guess, or however it was put here, that the waves were like, serious. It was like chaotic 400-foot waves, when the moon was placed, basically settled things down, I guess, to an extent, or created like the tides and the whatever. I don't know. But yeah, it sounded, I don't even know. This is just what I just heard.
Yeah.
But that,
Okay.
basically it helped. And I guess it would make it the ability to create the land, like you're saying, or make the, terraform the earth. But it's really great that you just talked about Reina and how, the thought forms, because that's literally like what I was saying. And like from my understanding, connected to like near death experiencers, channelers and things like that, that they, we're all doing that even here. Like we're doing that. So, and of course, I believe we're spiritual beings having a, temporary human experience. And so like when we are on the other side, say after we die or whatever, which death is more of an illusion in my understanding, but we become more, it's quick, the manifestation, the thought, intentions, like we can probably create like what you're saying the ancients did as far as the earth goes, like they are able to just do that. Well, from my understanding, once we're out of this body and our consciousness is back, in the ether or whatever, that it's quick like that. But even on
manifestation is
Earth,
quicker,
it's just
yeah.
a slower thing. We're all, with our thoughts, we're creating our realities. It may not be instantaneous because of time, but like,
Wasn't it?
So it's a slower process.
I think it's Joe Dispenza who said, "Where thoughts goes, energy flows, and that thoughts become things." Like nothing on this planet right now, like this microphone, this shirt that I'm wearing, this coffee cup, like nothing became until it was a thought first. Like everything starts as a thought. It may not manifest right away, like Leslie's saying, like when we're out of the body, manifestation happens like with the quickness. But when we're in these physical bodies, it takes a lot more like physical action behind the manifestations. But yeah, very, very interesting points that we've been bringing up. So what first inspired you to explore the idea that Earth might have been constructed by advanced civilizations? And then what evidence do you see in the terrain that convinced you that the Earth may have been engineered?
Those are great questions, and I'm really glad you asked them. Well, because the answer is really easy. I can just tell you what happened. I was in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. It was month 17. It was August of 2015. And the Fojnica River, which is this placid river that meanders through the Bosnian Pyramid Complex and meets the Bosna River in Visoko, which is in the heart of the complex here. That's why Visoko Village is there, because these two rivers meet, and it's, there's fishing in there, and it's just a beautiful place to put a town,
Okay.
So this little meandering river, the Fojnica, was pretty low in the middle or near the end of summer there. And I thought, hey, I'll just, I wonder, it'd be nice to get into the river with my sandals and my shorts and walk up the river and see if, take my camera and see if the riverbed was built. In other words, because the pyramids are so large in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, it's kind of hard to comprehend how large they are. And every day that I woke up in that complex for 23 months, I thought, oh my God, they're bigger than I remember yesterday, They're bigger than I remember.
Wow.
Every single day. I was like, the scale of building was so astounding,
Wow.
So it's like, it's hard to see where the pyramids begin. They're not like the pyramids in Egypt and Mexico and South America, where you can see that they set on the earth, and here's the first block, and there's the next tier, and there's the next tier. It's not like that.
Okay.
It's just they're part of the landscape, and you're like, where do these things begin? So I thought maybe the riverbed is the foundation, So I went in there, made a video, and I found the same signs of building that other sites further up on the pyramids that had been dug out and excavated, scientifically, had shown. So I thought, oh my God, that they have the same building, which is these hard baked clay stones.
Okay.
Set leaning into the structure. In other words, like if you're going up the riverbed this way and you look to your right, the big clay stones are leaning into what is going to become the pyramid, even though you can't really tell that yet, because the pyramid is so large that it just looks like a gradual slope.
Okay.
And it's leaning into that center of the pyramid toward it, so that if there's any earthquake And that's the same on this side too. They're leaning this way.
Like
So does
stabilizes it.
any earthquake kinetic energy comes along, the soft earthquake mitigating clay below the stone and the soft earthquake mitigating clay above the stone, well, this is going to wedge in stronger toward the center of the pyramid there and toward the center of the hill on the other side here.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's
That
going to
makes
get
sense.
stronger and stronger.
Right.
Here's another virtually straight line that doglegs into another straight line. These are supposed to be cracks. One would wonder if this is sedimentary material, as academia tells us, that these are layers, right? Laid down across time. Why would this section face be vertical? Why would it be regular? How is nature making a vertical, regular-sided face, and again here, vertical, regular-sided face, in sedimentary material? If this were a crack, as academia tells us it must be, all of these lines must be cracks that came later, then you would see, when you see the section face, you would see a jagged, irregular face. You would never have a regular face like that. It just wouldn't happen. Impossible. Because nature, if it was a crack, or a joint fracture as academia calls them, if these were joint fractures, the fracture would find a weakness in the material. And that weakness would never be straight-sided, regular-sided, right? This is regular. It's not perfectly straight or perfectly vertical, right? It's curving. Interesting, right? But it's still a basically regular-sided face. That would never happen if this were natural. The geologists just don't care. Their theory doesn't allow them to ask the question, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial, right? Geologists and all earth sciences academics have a false premise at the base of their thinking and of all their research and of all their writing. And that false premise is that we are the first advanced race in the universe. Really? That's a bold assumption to base everything you do on. So if we're the first advanced race in the universe, their thinking goes, then everything we see in the natural world must be natural. It must have come into existence through natural forces, because we didn't build any of this. We didn't build this riverbed. We know we didn't, right? So this must have come into existence through natural forces because there were no other advanced races around to build a riverbed, a continent, 6 continents, a planet, the sun, solar systems, galaxies, space, life forms. We didn't build any of those things, and if you believe that we are the first advanced race in the universe, then everything we see in the natural world must have come into existence through natural forces. So whether you're a geologist looking at the material on a riverbank, or you're a zoologist watching a zebra in the Serengeti through binoculars, or you're a laboratory assistant looking at life forms through a microscope, or you're an astronomer looking at various stellar objects or planetary objects, everything, the assumption goes, must have come into existence through natural forces because we're the first advanced race in the universe. We didn't build any of that stuff. Must be natural. So the question is never asked because of this false premise that we're the first advanced race in the universe. The question is never asked by earth sciences, space sciences, biological sciences people, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? So that's the problem. It's the premise that we're the first advanced race in the universe, which is farcical on the face of it. The first advanced race? Please. We are on our way to becoming advanced. We are not that advanced compared to the races that already exist and have been here for millions, billions, and maybe trillions of years.
So what they did was they built with alternating hard and soft layers of clay, pure clay. There's some concrete features, which I can tell you about if we get to those. But anyway, so just zip along. So after discovering that that the riverbed was built, I told Semir, who discovered the pyramids there in 2005, and I said, hey, he picked me up to go make a video with him because I was working as his videographer for 19 months, and so he picked me up by the riverbed, and I said, hey, Semir, the riverbed's built, and he didn't really say anything. He goes, well, that would be a lot of work. Like, that was the only thing that he said, like he didn't go show me the evidence. Well, I did send him the evidence because I was all excited,
Yeah, sure.
I sent him the photos, I sent him the video, and he was willing to, as a scientist, to look at that, but he's never sent a team down there as far as I know. So
seems like a missed opportunity.
Well, it's just delayed a while. He'll find out eventually, and that'll be great. Because then you can have tourists floating down on rubber rafts and the tour guide can just go, look, it's see the building of the structures from the riverbed, It'll be cool, But anyway, so I went outside the complex to see where the riverbed became natural, because I thought, well, they couldn't have built it very far, So I went outside like a mile, then a couple miles, and took some friends out a bunch of miles, and I kept finding signs of building. So then I started thinking, oh, gee, did they build all of Bosnia, And just so
you never found the end or the beginning?
I didn't find the end. I went up to the tributary, the Dragica River, main tributary there, and I still couldn't find they were still built. And I was like, oh, and then I went to South Africa with Michael Tellinger. The hills were built there with the same different material, but the same incline construction. No matter where you were, the layers were inclined toward the center of the hills in South Africa. And I was like, holy crap.
I've never heard anybody else talk about this. How is this not like a mainstream on Ancient Aliens kind of thing? Like, where's Graham Hancock when you need him?
You wouldn't look for it. You would never notice it unless you were. I would never have noticed it, except I had the training of 17 months in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, and then some more months. But that was the first time, 17 months in, and I was like, my God, this is. I'm just a playwright who loves ancient history. I don't want to be the continental terraforming guy who says that all the continents are built. That's just crazy. That's too much. First of all, it's crazy. That's just insane.
You're it.
Yeah, I was going to say, here we are, surprise.
The scale of building is too big, so that people just go, well, you're crazy. And second of all, all that weight of that responsibility for that theory would be too much. And I was like, I don't want to be this guy. But I became that guy because nobody else seems to really sort of go, yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, so you started out in the riverbed, then you kept going a couple miles, and then you realized, oh, this is not ending. Then you realized it must be the whole country, and then you conflated that to the whole planet. Well, and then more planets, right?
Yeah, and briefly, in 30 seconds, if we have 30 seconds, the material changed. So that's why I call the Bosnian pyramids the late stage terraforming project, because they came in 34,000 years ago, the people who built the continents, and they said, we're going to do a little bit of repair work. And they said, we're going to make it out of clay this time. So everything outside the complex is concrete.
Okay.
And you can see the line where it's at Buci Bridge, B-U-C-I. Anybody can see it. I've got it on video. The clay is inside the complex. It's pure clay except for some concrete features, but 99% clay in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, alternating hard and soft layers. But at Buci Bridge, it changes to concrete, and there's no clay at all. So, and those hills going toward Kiseljak, going west toward Kiseljak, are all concrete. So
it seems very intentionally done. Like like if it was like naturally produced by Earth, like she wouldn't give a shit if there was a bridge there and make it something different from that point forward. That seems like a very intentional, like planning, building kind of constructional thought process.
I think the bridge was just by happenstance put there later in modern times.
Okay.
But then again, there could have been a road there for 40,000 years that the bridge is following. Who knows? But I think the point is that if you follow these cutouts, if you're just walking along the road outside the pyramid complex, you'll see the concrete in vertical lines through the concrete. Now, the concrete's in layers, and people go, oh, it's a sedimentary geological formation through time. It's natural. But then you go, where'd these vertical lines come from? That are sectioned, and the lines are going at the same angle all along the friggin' cutout.
I was looking at some of the content on your YouTube channel, and I was looking at the video where you were like pointing out how the rocks are layered, and then you were mentioning something about 45-degree asymmetrical lines. And like I heard you say it, but my brain didn't comprehend what you were saying. So can you school me on that? Like what was the deal with the 45-degree lines?
But there's tons of evidence that falsifies the geology theory everywhere you look. And we're going to go look at some of that right now. we're going to look at this hillside and see how the true ancients built it, okay? This is not a natural feature. These are building blocks. If this is horizontally laid limestone, why is there a vertical side and a regular face to that section, right? Why is there a vertical side and a regular face to this section? What's that vertical side doing there on the right of that section? What's this vertical side doing? It's a vertical seam between two sections of crystalline concrete. That's what that is, okay? I want to be really clear. Oh, and here's a nice 45-degree angle line right here. See it? See the line? We'll just document it, okay? Right there, boom. See the 45-degree angle line? 45 degrees was the primary angle of construction for the true ancients who built the continents.
Bizarrely, the riverbeds and creek beds all around the world, and I've explored 3 continents personally, but I've also explored 5 continents, not Antarctica, because you can't see the material because of the snow, obviously, the snow and ice, but I've explored 3 continents, in my boots, and then I've explored 2 other continents with other people's drone footage of creek beds and riverbeds, and I can see the same thing in those 2 continents too. So in the ones I've explored, Eurasia, when I was in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex in Croatia, then in South Africa with Michael Tellinger, and then in North America here in Texas, and I went to Wyoming, California. I've done those videos. People can see them on my channel, Jock Doubleday. And go to the Artificial Riverbeds playlist, and it's all there. I mean, anybody can see it if we ask the question, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? See, the thing about the academia, as we were talking about just before we did this, before we started recording, the earth sciences academics and space sciences academics and life sciences academics all have the same false premise at the base of their thinking. And that false premise is that we're the first advanced race in the universe.
Yeah.
So egotistical, huh?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So what does this false premise lead all the sciences to in the academics?
Being wrong.
In academia. Well, it leads them to, if you're looking through a telescope and you're an astronomer, you go, well, I know that came into existence through natural forces. That sun, that solar system, that all of that space, everything I see came into existence through natural forces because we're the first advanced race in the universe. We didn't build the sun. We didn't build space. We didn't build solar systems, galaxies. So we know it's natural. There are no other races around to build any of that stuff. And if you're a biologist and you're looking through a microscope, you go, well, I know these cells came into existence through natural forces because we're the first advanced race in the universe. We didn't build cells, and there were no other races to build them. So we know they're natural. So let's just start there. And and if you're a geologist or any earth sciences, there's, I think, 74 different subdisciplines of earth sciences. And, so any of those people are going to say everything that we see in the terrain, everything that we see in the oceanic crust, everything has come into existence through natural forces. Because we're the first advanced race and we didn't build the damn continents. We didn't build the crust. We didn't build the earth. So there were no other races around to build any of that stuff. So we don't even ask the question, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? But if you do ask that question on the terrain, then your mind can gather evidence for either theory, natural or artifice.
Yeah, and think how much that controls our reality. And for generations, people are taught one way and everybody just goes that way. And it's like, nobody's thinking critically about anything, there's no evolving, there's no,
This
nothing.
also
It's
is reminiscent.
stunning.
Exactly. This is also reminiscent to Daniel Bronco and his whole idea of becoming a neuroscientist to find out, does consciousness create the brain or does brain create consciousness?
Right.
And the fact that we're operating off of this idea
Assumption.
that matter is fundamental when
that's what I was just thinking.
Consciousness is fundamental. It's like we're starting on the base premise that we're starting on is wrong.
Is incorrect, yeah. But
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
materialistic
talking
view.
earlier. It's it seems like in all the different fields, from consciousness even to down to the earth now. I mean, we need to think about things and really not always just go with what
what we were indoctrinated.
So
and
not only
programmed
is
with.
materialism, not only do I think that materialism incorrect, but now just like the point that you made, Jock, a minute ago is now it's not only materialism that's incorrect, it's also the base assumption that we are the first advanced intelligence in the universe. That's also incorrect.
Well, I mean,
so it's like a double whammy there.
yeah, I mean, to me, it's like it's a question of keeping our minds open to either one. So let's say that we're a scientist and we're out on the terrain, or we're a marine biologist and we're at the ocean side.
Mm-hmm.
We can just say, look, we're not 100% sure if materialism is too reductionistic and should be discarded, or if spiritualism or consciousness came first is the best way. Let's just keep our minds open, and we'll just gather evidence for the materialistic, more reductionistic view. We'll see if that works, and we'll gather evidence for this one. And if we're geologists, we'll gather evidence for artifice of what we're looking at, and we'll gather evidence for natural came into existence through natural forces. And we'll just see which one holds up better, because we want to present this to the public, because the public is the ultimate. It shouldn't be like the public is told what to think. It should be like, here's some evidence. What do you guys think? The global mind can then, through the internet, now that we have the internet, the global mind can go, this one looks better than this one.
This one makes more sense.
Yeah, but instead, a lot of times it gets shut down because there's organizations, that come together, government, maybe organizations, or I feel like I'm not saying organizations right now. I don't know if I am. I'm just talking really fast. But anyway, that they hush it down because it's going against, what they've been saying for decades. And so, they're going to get, I don't know, black, whatever you call it, where they just mess up.
Oh, blacklisted.
Blacklisted, yeah, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, on another note, because you guys have mentioned Graham Hancock, he was my hero, and then I found his the reason Graham Hancock became my hero before I even went to the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. I was already studying ancient history because I found his book on the sidewalk in Ventura, California. Someone had just they'd left like 20 books there, as if it was like, well, I'm too lazy to go to the library, or I just want to gift some random public with some books. You guys can take them from this stack.
Nice.
And it was like this fairly new copy of his first book, Fingerprints of the Gods.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh my God.
Wow.
What a book. It became the most important book I'd ever read. Then I read his book, Underworld, and I was like, oh my God, he's talking about ice for 60 pages in the beginning. He has the Piri Reis map for the Turkish admiral who navigated the ancient seas, and had based that map on 20 ancient source maps that he lists on the map itself. So we know it's ancient. And he shows the part of Antarctica that we can't even map because it's under ice. And it's like, how did he know what Antarctica looks like there?
Right.
So, and then he talks for ice for 60 pages, and I'm like, how does anybody talk about ice for 60 pages and remain interesting? But that's what Hancock does. He's amazing. He's an amazing scientist. But then, see, the problem was that he came to the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, and he was like, it's not a problem for him to have an opinion about the complex that's not the same as my opinion or other people's opinion. It's just that it seemed to get memory hold to some degree, and his trip seemed to get memory hold. And I was sad about that, because it would have been great. I was prohibited from taking photos or doing video of Graham because he said there's that prohibition. I'm not going to let anyone take photos or video of me in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. I'm like, but that's the same thing you railed against when Zahi Hawass wouldn't let anyone take photos or video of him visiting that chamber beneath the left paw of his face.
Yeah.
And Hancock was furious about that. No, we have to keep it open. We have to see what he finds. And it's like, I wanted to be the guy showing the world what Graham Hancock was seeing, but he wouldn't let me do any video or photos ever of him in the 3 or 4 days he was there. And he got a personal tour from Semir and his wife, so Graham and his wife got a tour from Semir and his wife, and it's like a personal tour. I mean, that's unheard of, but Graham is like, he's an amazing guy. And so he's always been my hero. I had a big problem with him sort of memory holding his trip there, because I was like, man, it's not even in the index to the next book he made, which was Magicians of the Gods, I think it was called. And the Bosnian pyramids aren't even in the index. And I was like, how can you leave out the Bosnian pyramid? Just give us your opinion and give us the evidence that you have for saying it's not really structures, but are just natural hills. And that's what Wikipedia says. Wikipedia says they don't even have a page for the Bosnian pyramids. They just have a page that says Bosnian pyramid claims.
Really?
Well,
Short
Wikipedia
page.
is a whole thing in itself with that
Yeah.
Susan lady, but
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if you're going to agree with Wikipedia, at least give us the evidence for agreeing with Wikipedia, you know? So
Why do you think he was being so like tight-lipped about the Bosnian Pyramid Complex? Why do you think
I
he
don't
was
know.
being so?
Well, I have an opinion, but I'm not going to voice it
Okay.
at this time, and I'll probably never voice it.
Okay,
Understood.
okay.
Understood. We can
But
move
I
on.
mean, I respect him, and I respect Randall Carlson a lot, and I want to talk about Randall for a second because he has the same premise that all academics have, which is that we're the first advanced race. So when he's showing Graham Hancock North America for Graham's newest book, you know, he got led around by Randall Carlson and was being taught by Randall, and which makes sense because Randall's extremely well studied in geology. He might have read more papers than anybody else in the field. Extremely highly respected intellectual, and so by me and by everybody else. So, but his premise is that everything he sees is natural. So he's always coming up with a theory that is based on that premise. And he's like, well, the only way this could come into existence is to have had huge flooding that carved this valley. And it's like, well, if advanced races exist that could have built the planet and the continental features, why couldn't they have built this valley?
Huh. And so if those advanced civilizations could terraform planets, what do you think their ultimate goal was?
And how many
Well,
do you think they did?
That's if you check out my hashtag on social media, ecological terraforming,
Okay.
it's amazing what they did and I fully believe this because of the evidence. I'm not just sitting in my chair fantasizing. I've done 1,000+ hours of field research on 3 continents,
Right.
and then many more hours of field research through people's drone videos of creek beds, and so it's not really field research, but it's internet research.
It's assisted field research.
It's using other people's field research. But anyway, so I've done the research, and what they did was, you started with your question about the 45-degree angle. So what they did was they built the features of the continents, hills, valleys, mountains, from the riverbeds and creek beds up, and we can see the evidence of this in the 45-degree angle sectioning of their creek banks. So if you're in a creek bed, like in Texas, there's not much water in a lot of these little creek beds and riverbeds for most of the year. It's pretty dry.
Yeah.
So you can get in there and you can see the structure, you know, of the creek banks and the creek bed. So you can see the angles of construction. So let's say you're walking along this winding riverbed or creek bed. Well, as you go, you notice that the flow of the river or the flow of the creek, you know what the flow of the creek is going to be, even if you're not looking at it, because you can see the 45-degree angle sectioning along the riverbank. So the main angle of construction is 45. So if you took a drone over top of it, you'd see this crisscrossing as you go, where that's 45, 45. Now they do have other angles, but the primary angles of construction are 45 across the creek bed and riverbed and up along in the first and sometimes second, and then other rows of material, you'll see the 45-degree angle sectioning.
Okay.
So when the section comes out, because it's eroded out, you'll see the smooth-sided 45-degree angle. It's a vertical face to the section, but it's also going 45 across the creek, and you're like, oh my God! So this is all documented in my artificial riverbeds playlist on Jock Doubleday YouTube channel. So it's all there. Anybody can see it, but all you have to do is ask the question: is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? And then you can see it. You don't need me. You don't need to just write to me and go, hey Jock, I found. Well, I'm a playwright. I'm going to get back to writing plays. You guys can see it, but all we need to do is bypass academia's, we're the first advanced race, and then we can gather evidence for one theory or the other.
Interesting. If someone said that they were like skeptical of your theories or like needed to learn more, what would you point them to? Like, what piece of evidence would you share to make them like reconsider what they're thinking?
Well, I'll just give you part B to the ecological terraforming thing, because once you mentioned asymmetrical sectioning, that's how the geologists and the rest of us missed the building, because the ancients used different sized and different shaped sections or blocks we would call them blocks, but I call them sections in my videos because there's some of them are so huge, it's kind of hard to think of them as a block. You know, some of them are 20 or 30 meters long with no break, no seam. They're just huge concrete sections that we could never move, you know. So they poured them in place, obviously, they cast them in place, and they're asymmetrical, meaning that they're earthquake mitigating. So the reason our structures fall, one of the reasons in an earthquake, is that we're using bricks that are the same size and the same shape, and it's the worst possible thing you could do in an earthquake. You want blocks, and that are, some of them are huge, and you've seen in Peru with Sacsayhuaman. Some of those are huge, and then there's a small one and a small, and they're sort of polygonal, different shapes. None of them are the same. None of them are square. They're like sort of weird shaped, and that's perfect for earthquake mitigation. So it's strong building. So, and I think that 45-degree angle, primary angle of construction across the riverbeds and creek beds is also a mark of strong building. I'm not an engineer to explain why that would be true, but I think that must be the case because they've lasted this long. There's been minor erosion, but now here we're going to get into the ecological terraforming, because the erosion of the creek banks is, I believe, something that the true ancients who built the continents planned for. In other words, in Texas, they have soft earthquake mitigating gypsum, and then a hard structural layer of blocks that are baked gypsum, and then soft earthquake mitigating gypsum, and then hard structural layers. So the hard structural layers, the really dense, heavy ones, are keeping the soft ones in place, and the soft ones are mitigating the earthquake kinetic energy. But what happens is that these soft layers are not only doing earthquake mitigation, they're doing another amazing thing for the earth, which is the rainwater and the creek water and river water that runs past them is slowly dissolving these highly potent minerals to fertilize the land.
We've all been mind controlled since day one. Let's get a photo. See the regular but not perfectly smooth, not perfectly regular sides. It's good for earthquake mitigation because there's some angles along their line here. It's not a perfectly straight line. So this is really good in earthquake mitigation because these will rub against the section next to it on the left. So obviously this section came out of the hillside. Why did it come out? Because the soft earthquake mitigating layer below it was eroded by rainwater, creating soil, but eventually the section above the soft earthquake mitigating layer, all the sections come out. You can see the regular quality to the sides, okay? Really good for earthquake mitigation. Because even though it's regular, it's not perfectly straight and not perfectly flat. All this is real good for earthquake mitigation. But the primary idea is that these regular vertical faces could not have come into existence in sedimentary material. We would have seen fracturing, jagged fracturing. Instead, we see regular faces.
Okay.
So you get constant soil repotentization, remineralization every single day of every single year, and there's no moving
so
parts.
Intentional
To wear out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just thinking all of this sounds so intentional. The size, the shape, the placement, the matter it's constructed of. Like when you said that it's like as the water's running past it and slowly mineralizing the water, I was thinking of like one of them concentrated fish food blocks you throw into the tank and then it just kind of sits there and they slowly, eat at it. So it's kind of like the same thing where the soft mitigating structures slowly mineralizing and fertilizing the water that runs past it and whatever that water's like whatever plants or whatever animals are drinking it. So that's so interesting. The whole thing seems so intentional. Like I don't think I considered this before. I don't think I ever even thought to think this before. And it's so synchronistic that we're talking to you now because like we talked about earlier, I just finished doing that 2.5-hour Chris Lato video about Egypt. And I learned so much about Egypt and pyramids doing that. And it's so weird because like I never really got into the pyramid Egypt thing. I mean, my mom swears that she had a past life in Egypt Egypt. Like she seems to think that she
Yeah.
has memories from there, which is weird because she grew up Catholic and she was like taught by the nuns in Manhattan and all that other stuff. But so her believing she had a past life in Egypt totally contradicted her religious upbringing. But anyways, yeah, this is also interesting.
Yeah, it's like what's coming to my mind is if everything was so intentionally placed, like to me that speaks of the simulation theory that we're living in an intentionalized simulation that we're all taking part in.
Right. And then, yeah, I've thought about this and it's so interesting because then if someone built the planet and presumably other planets,
Mm-hmm.
but they're doing it within the simulation.
Yeah.
In other words, if they simulated the universe,
Right.
presumably then races were doing things within the simulation and they're building planets, and it's like it's another level of construction, but it's not the same thing as the original simulation, which was just like, we're going to have this video game called the universe.
Yeah.
And it's going to be frequency, a dance of frequency patterns. Within that, there's going to be these cool characters who all of whom have free will. Bacteria have free will, plants have free will. They can move toward the sun if they want, or they can go to the shade if they love shade more. The animals have free will, people have free will. All these characters in the video game, unlike the video games we create, where nobody has free will in the games we create, but
Exactly.
all of the characters in
thought
the
of that
universe
either.
have free will. So that's a cool game. Let's see what they do. I wonder if they're
Yeah.
going to build planets, you know?
And that also brings back Chris Lato's theory, the scalar theory, that we ourselves are some type of microscopic life to some other form of macroscopic life that's out there in the universe. And this idea, it's not that far-fetched to me because
Yeah.
when we first discovered bacteria and this whole microbiome of life, through a microscope, we
Right.
discovered it, but nobody believed it. And for 200 years?
Literally for 200
It took 200 years for everybody to realize
they saw
that
the microorganisms moving under the microscope. It still took 200 years for science to go, okay, I guess this is real now.
And as many people as there are on the planet, there are billions and billions of other little tiny microscopic life forms for every single person. So the whole microbiome is so much larger than we are, ourselves. And that whole idea is just mind-blowing to me, that there could be this macroscopic life form
Right.
that we can't even perceive.
That we're the cells of, you mean?
That we are the cells of, yeah. That maybe the planet is the cell of. But that could also go back to everything being in this simulation, in this universal simulation. I don't know.
All I know is that I don't know.
Right.
I mean, if we wanted to go further, we could even say that the universes themselves are the cells, and within the cells are all these things happening,
Yeah,
Whoa.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That'd be cool.
It's
Yeah.
it's so interesting.
There's no reason that Chris Lato should be wrong. In other words, his theory is logical. It's just that because we're at the scale we're about this big compared to other organisms that are really, really small, even under a microscope, and then compared to some large thing like a mountain, we're about this big. We think that we're the center of the universe. We think that this is just about the right size to be.
Yeah.
But it's like that's just ego.
Ego.
It is ego. Yeah.
So where do you think we're headed right now with the current state of the world, the current state of disclosure? We talked before we started recording about the Ross Coulthart special that's coming out tonight at 8 p.m. with the new whistleblower Jake Barber. We have Trump talking about how he's going to make an announcement on day one of his inauguration, which would be Tuesday, for the drone situation. We have Dr. Stephen Greer talking about we're on a 72-hour countdown for his whistleblowers to come forward, which I feel like he's double dipping into Ross's whistleblower pool, but that's a whole other issue. So what's your opinion on the current state of all that?
Well, before I have a couple of things to say, but before I get into current events, let me add an addendum onto the ecological terraforming thing, just so that people get a rounded view.
Sure.
Okay.
The biosphere is this astounding thing. I mean, the idea of ecology that we are related to other beings in this web of life was a new idea in the 70s. I mean, it was a completely new idea that it might matter if we killed off a species, because that species was helping other species in a symbiotic relationship, that everything's, so the biosphere, this idea is only 50 something years old. And I think that the ancients who build planets, let's just posit that that's something that could have happened. The true ancients who build planets, the Terra was not their last rodeo. So Terra was not their first rodeo, is what I meant to say.
Okay.
It's maybe their last rodeo, the latest rodeo. Maybe they've built 1 million planets since they built Terra, if we say that Terra was built. But certainly they knew what they were doing by the time they got to our planet. And so what they did was they created a crystalline, I hesitate to use the word concrete because that sounds dead, but a crystalline mineral structure, let's just say that. And that the crystalline minerals were used by the plants that came from, whether they are brought here or whether they evolved naturally or whether both were the case, it doesn't really matter to this theory. The plants appeared. They used the crystalline mineral material to live. Then we were able to assimilate, we animals were able to assimilate the minerals because the plants made them bioavailable to us.
Right.
We're using the life of the crystals that the plants translated for us to be what we are. So without the crystalline mineral matrix, we would not, nothing that we understand as life would exist here. So they built from the right thing. There's something called the Plaster War in the 1820s. It was all about a war over gypsum. So the American farmers were trying to get gypsum from Canada because there was this really amazing deposit of gypsum in Nova Scotia. But between Nova Scotia and the farmers, it was a legal problem to get it to America. And so there was a black market on gypsum, this mineral that they wanted to make their crops grow better. And the farmers are trying to get this gypsum. So it's called the Plaster War, because gypsum is plaster. Okay. Basically. So then you go, oh, gypsum is not only a fertilizer for the land that's extremely highly viable and that's being slowly eroded day by day by rainwater and creek water and river water and brought to the soil and increasing the mass of the soil and the potency of the soil every day by the people, if we accept this, by the people who built this planet. But it's also this concretizable mineral so that they can bake it and make hard structural layers to keep their soft ecological terraforming layers in place in the creek banks and river banks. And so I document all this in Bosnia. That's how they built the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, alternating hard and soft layers. And if you want to taste the best potatoes you've ever had, eat the potatoes in Bosnia, in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, that are grown on the clay that is eroded from the soft earthquake mitigating layers of the pyramid themselves. These potatoes will blow your mind.
Are they purple?
The ancients knew what they were doing. They're like, we're going to build complexes that will last, but also slowly give you more soil mass and potentized mineral soil.
Wow.
That would also include humans because they're going to drink the water and everything. And I was thinking of plants and how they grow. And basically plants are growing from within. Okay, there's the acorn or the seed, and within that acorn or seed is the entire plant already. You know what I mean? It's basically coming from within and growing. But the same thing is happening with us humans. We're growing from within. I think that a lot of people don't even realize that we're basically doing the same thing. But all the mineral talk, it just made me think of things growing. I don't know how I went there, but I did. Anyway.
Yeah, and you can see so many health sites really emphasizing the importance of minerals.
Yeah, and how controlled is that? With it's illegal. They try to make minerals and things that are actually helpful illegal because of pharmaceutical big farm and all that kind of stuff. I'm going way off. So sorry.
No, it's true.
I'm apologizing again. I just caught myself.
It's true. I mean, the anti-life, let's call it the death cult, since that's what it is. The death cult folks are against the everything that the true ancients wanted to create here, which was a crystalline mineral matrix that would help life flourish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you do our audience a favor and tell them, like, drop all your links, let them know where they can find you, what you're working on, and how to get in touch with you?
Sure. I'm writing a book called Artifact Terra, and you can just find that on WordPress, Artifact Terra WordPress, or not. You don't have to find it, because it's just a book. I have the chapter title, so you can go, oh, those are the chapter titles, but it doesn't really. There's no more information than that. But if you really want information that backs up the theory, evidence, you can one of two things. You can go on a hike and check it out yourself. Just go onto a creek bed, a riverbed, or a mountain, or a hill, and look at it and go, I wonder if it's artificial or natural, you know? Okay. Or you could go to my video playlist, which is Artificial Riverbeds on Jock Doubleday YouTube channel, and you can see how I diagnose it based on the training that I got in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, which is a late-stage terraforming project by the true ancients who built the continents. Okay. Yeah, it's all my stuff is free. I never monetize any videos because it's for humanity, you know. I mean, it's not so I can make money and be like a famous ancient history guy. That's the last thing I want. I love coming on shows like this, but it's like I would rather pass the baton to every single human and go on a hike. You don't need a playwright to tell you what to see, you know?
Gotcha. So you've got your Artifact Terra books page, your YouTube channel, and you have a Bosnian Pyramid YouTube channel as well, right?
Right. If you just type in youtube.com/Bosnian Pyramids with an S, and that's my channel from my 23 months in the Bosnian Pyramids.
Awesome. Ask him your famous question.
Yeah, I was about to say, speaking of humanity, what is your greatest hope for the future of humanity?
That we reclaim our sovereignty, because we've lived in a slave matrix since the very first day of our creation. Mm. So, because if you're a farmer, you don't get the animals and then build the fences. You build the farming system, then you bring your livestock in. So I think that since on day one of our creation, we have been slaves, and that's taken the form of a thought control matrix. They haven't told us the truth. They've dumbed us down. They've given us 5 fingers instead of 3 or 6. So the 5 fingers mathematics system gives us base 10 instead of base 12. And that leads us to the wrong math. And so Ken Rolla has talked about this. Ken Rolla, ROHLA, he's talked about this in Journey to Truth interviews, and it's really incredible.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's a good answer, yeah.
I have a thing out of left field I just wanted to bring up because I'm seeing a lot of videos about sounds underneath the ground right now. And it sounds like they're building tunnels or there's some sort of
I think they're blowing up tunnels, but go ahead.
You think they're blowing them up?
I think they're blowing up the dumbs. I think they're blowing up the dumbs. So? Mm-hmm.
I feel like they do sound like kind of like, there's big machines that are circular that create the tunnels. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah, the TBMs, tunnel boring machines.
It sounds like that versus like explosions. It sounds like something actually.
Oh, they probably are. Yeah.
Okay.
They probably are digging more tunnels for sure.
I don't know.
Especially the military.
So much stuff's going on behind the scenes for good and for ill. It was mostly for ill for so long, and now we're in that transition time when the dumbs are being cleared out, the deep underground military bases are being cleared out of the Draco, the Greys, all the bad stuff that's going on with the genetic engineering, the cloning,
human trafficking,
child trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and they're just like so much evil went on in these dumbs, and they're clearing that out. And
burn the sage.
And that's going to take some time, but it's some trusted resources are saying that the 113 dumbs underneath the U.S. have been cleared out, and they're still clearing out the over 1,000 dumbs worldwide. And so pretty soon it's all going to be taken care of by the alliance, the 17 Western militaries that form the White Hat Alliance.
Oh wow!
Whoa!
All right.
Very, very interesting.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If you had an unlimited budget to go anywhere in the world, where would you go and why? To uncover more evidence.
Oh,
good question.
Sorry.
I think let's see. Well, Antarctica's pretty much covered except for those pyramids that keep popping out. So I'd probably go Do I have to stay on Terra, or could I go to Mars?
Oh, let's go to Mars.
Yeah, you could go to Mars.
Okay. I'd probably go to Mars just because I feel like I've done enough research on Terra to show that the continents were built here, and I'd want to go show it on a different planet.
Amazing.
Speaking of Mars, I actually discovered a picture that was taken by the Mars rover.
Yeah.
Right. And this picture shows what appears to be a statue, like the face of a statue of this person that kind of looks like his face is elongated.
And there's more than
a
one
little
of them
bit
too.
And he's laying on his side, and it's clear as day. It looks like a face to me.
Yep. It
Right.
does. And there's a few of them.
And there's a couple different ones, and they're all kind of similar. And there's a lot of interesting features in the quote unquote rocks in this one picture. I don't think they're rocks. I think they're remnants of some type of ancient stone building or structure that got blown up. And it's clear as day on the surface of Mars. The picture was taken directly from NASA's JPL website. So, yeah, I mean,
They forgot to.
I think they forgot to scrub it. Yeah,
they forgot to scrub it. We got it before they
It's very
scrubbed it.
interesting. So we'll probably throw
Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit that
throw it
in.
up on the screen right now so everybody can see. But it's truly remarkable, and I definitely think that there was some type of ancient civilization, whether it was ancient humans or some other form of NHI. I definitely really think that there was some sort of civilization
there.
on Mars millions of years ago.
Yeah. We have the pyramids, and we have the face, and we have that whole the city,
Sidonian region, yeah.
Right. So we know that the pyramids are built, and then the question for me would be, I wouldn't even be looking at the pyramids that much. I'd be looking at the structures of the other structures that show the where you can get inside the terrain and look at the planet surface itself and go, is that built too? You know?
Yeah.
So and I've seen some evidence of that, but it's hard to tell because. And like I say, the geologists were fooled, just like we were fooled, because the building does look natural because they used asymmetrical sectioning. If they had used blocks that were the same size, we would have seen the construction instantly. We never would have had any doubt about it. But they used asymmetrical sectioning for earthquake mitigation, I propose, and that's why we couldn't see the building here. And who knows, on Mars, probably the same thing, but who knows, you know?
Well, when you get back from Mars with all that new evidence, come back on the show. We'll have you back, and then you can present that to our
Just live stream it from Mars. I mean.
Oh, okay. You can do that too.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. Yeah, we could definitely do that.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
This has been a really amazing conversation. I feel like I'm going to have to go and research some things like that gate. I got to go research that gate situation and figure out about that.
I'll send you the link that has it all.
Awesome.
Was there anything that you feel like you want to express or get out, with all your research that we maybe didn't cover?
I guess I would want to say that the energy that you guys have, that's sort of forward thinking, out of the box, and also really positive energy, like you're all smiling right now, is exactly what we need in the transition to the new Earth, the new Terra, as I call it. Because without this positive, joyful energy, what's the point of it all,
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you for pointing that out and recognizing that. That's really sweet. Well, I just wanted to thank you, Jock, for spending your time with us today and teaching us all this stuff. And if you'd like to come back on, we would love to have you, because I feel like I could keep talking to you for another hour.
Definitely.
So
yeah,
it would be great to have you back on.
Sure.
And for our audience that's sticking around, thank you guys so much. Please do us a favor and smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word. All right, everybody together. You ready?
Yep.
Much love. Peace.
Peace.
And namaste.